Good morning, everyone. This is Heidi, and this is our course, Global Marketing. So this is our 5th chapter. This will be our last chapter for our midterm exam. Okay. So on May 12, I guess. Let me check. So May 12 is going to be midterm exam, and we will talk about the details of the midterm exam on May 5th or next week. Okay, so this will be our last chapter. Then next week we will summarize the chapters from chapter 1 to chapter 5. So next week is going to be a summary, okay, or a wrap-up session of chapter 1 to chapter 5. Okay, so what type of exam will be there, what type of questions, and how are you going to participate in the exam? I will discuss this in our class next week. Okay, so this is our last chapter for the midterm exam. So this is our 5th chapter, and the 5th chapter is about the political, legal, and regulatory environments. So chapter 4, we have talked about the social issues in international trade, right? And in this chapter, we'll talk about some political, legal, and regulatory environments that are related to international trade and or that affect international trade. Okay, so mainly we will talk about 3 major points in this chapter. So the first is we will talk about the political environment. Okay, and the second important thing that we will talk about is the international law. And the third important point we'll be talking about is sidestepping issues, legal issues in international trade. So this chapter is divided into these 3 major topics. The political environment, where we will talk about, when we engage in international trade, since our business are going to be located in other countries, then the political situation or the political culture in these different countries will affect our business. Okay, so as CEOs or managers of multinational corporations or managers of companies involved in international trade, then it is the duty of the managers to study the political culture of these different countries in order to respond to any situations that arise from the political environment. So the political environment could be government institutions, it could be the bureaucracy, okay? So we'll talk about this political environments that affect international trade and how we can deal with this political environment. And the other major topic we have is international law. So why international law? Because once again, we are doing business in another country, okay? Or we are, so one way of involving in international trade is to have your plant or to open your company in a different country, right? So which country's law is going to govern your operations or your activities? For example, if we have a Korean company opened a subsidiary or a new plant in Germany, let's say Europe, okay? So is it the German law that is going to treat or be followed by your company, or is it the Korean law? Okay, or what will happen if your business or your company is in some kind of conflict with another similar type of businesses? Who is going to handle this, and how is it going to be handled? Okay, and what is the jurisdiction of the country? Okay, so the limitation. So this things, and also some conflicting ideas in international law will be talked, and the third one is some legal issues like patent rights, copyrights, okay, trademark rights. So we'll talk about. So we have these three major topics in this chapter: political environment, the international law, and the sidestepping legal issues in international trade. Okay, so let's start with the objectives of this chapter. Okay, so the first objective is to understand the elements of a country's political environment that can impact global marketing activities or global trade activities. Okay, and the other objective is define international law and describe the main types of legal systems found in different parts of the world. Okay, so what is international law, and what are these main types of legal systems that are found in different parts of the world? And the third objective is to understand the most important business issues that can lead to legal problems for global marketers. Okay, and the fourth is describe the availability, the available alternatives for conflict resolution and dispute settlement when doing business outside the home country. So we talked partly about this in WTO, right? We have said that WTO's responsibility is also to resolve conflicts or disputes among countries on trade, right? And again, who is going to be responsible to resolve conflicts or disputes in global business or in doing business internationally? So we'll talk about some other aspects of this in this chapter. And the fifth objective is, in general terms, outline the regulatory environment in the European Union. Okay, so European Union. So these are our objectives. Let's start with the first topic of this chapter, which is the political environment. So, as I've said, global marketing, it takes place within the political environment. Okay, so it's not pure from the political environment. It happens because we are doing business in another country. Then in this country, they have their own political cultures, right? So they take place within the political environment of government institutions, political parties, and organizations, okay, through which a country's people and the rulers exercise power. So there are the government institutions, there are political parties, and there are organizations through which these people are operating. Okay, so each nation in the world has its own unique culture, right? Each country has its own distinguishing unique culture. Okay, And this unique culture reflects the society. And of this unique cultures, the political culture is also one of the unique cultures of the nations. Okay, so the political culture reflects the importance of the government and legal system and provides a context within which individuals and corporations understand their relationships to the political system. Okay, so in political issues, we'll talk about the sovereignty, the political risk, the task policies, the threat of equity delusion, and the risk of expropriation. So these are the topics we have in, or these are the political issues we will discuss in the political environment. Okay, so we will see this one by one. Sovereignty of the country. Okay, sovereignty means an independent state, right? So when we do global marketing, so we are going or we are doing our businesses in another country, right? So this by itself will influence or will intervene in the sovereignty or in the independence authority of the country. Okay. So let's talk about the sovereignty, where is sovereignty and how it is affected. So every sovereign state or nation is bound to respect the sovereignty of the other state nation, okay, or the other state. So if your sovereign is being an independent political authority, okay, and it means nobody is allowed to interfere, okay, or for example, let's say Korea has no power to intervene in the political system of, let's say, Vietnam or any other country. And any other country, they do not have the right to intervene in any political system of Korea, right? Because Korea is an independent political authority, okay? But the thing is, as we have said, in international law, when you do business in other countries, and your business might have a conflict with another company within that country, then who is going to handle this conflict, or who is going to intervene? So this sometimes has the issue or conflicting issue of sovereignty, or this might result in intervening in another country's issues. Okay, so I'll give you, for example, a country has a right, for example, let's say Korea has the right to exercise its laws to things happened within the territory of Korea. Okay, so if there are businesses operating within Korea, it is the government of Korea is responsible to control the operation of these businesses, even though they are not Korean companies. Okay, so if this company is a US company, US cannot just intervene and try to dictate Korea how to handle this company's businesses, okay? Because Korea is a sovereign country or an independent political authority, okay? So because of global marketing, sometimes there is a mix of responsibilities, and this has to be handled. So a sovereign state was considered free and independent, okay? So it regulated trade, managed the flow of people into and out of its boundaries, and exercised individual jurisdiction over all persons and property within its territory. So it had the right the authority and the ability to conduct its domestic affairs without outside interference, and to use its international power and influence with full discretion. So this is what we mean by sovereignty. Okay. What makes global marketing a little bit complicated is some affairs might result in interfering in sovereignty of other nations. Okay, so I'll give you one additional example. Let's say a Korean company. Okay, a Korean company has its branch in Africa. Okay, and this company, this Korean company, has hired Koreans working in this company, which is located in Africa, let's say in Nigeria. Okay, and let's say there was something bad happened to the employee working for the Korean company in Nigeria. Okay, so who is going to take care of this problem? Is it the Nigerian government or the Korean government? That is what we call sovereignty. Okay, since this company is located within the territory or within the boundary of this country, Nigeria, then it is up to the Nigerian government to handle the case happened with the employee in the Korean company in Nigeria. Right? So, because the employee is Korean, Korea cannot just intervene and try to execute anything related to the employee. Okay, so what countries usually do is Korean government will talk to the Nigerian government, then the Nigerian government will take care of this action. Okay, so this is how you respect the sovereignty of the country. The Korean government cannot directly interfere into the affairs of another country. So the same is true for the other nations or nation states too. Okay. Okay. And sovereignty and global market integration. So here, government actions are taken in the name of sovereignty. Okay. So, and these actions taken by the government in the name of sovereignty might have two different contexts. So one is a country's stage of development, the stage of development, and the other is the political and economic system. So, so there are two reasons why the action of government intervene in the sovereignty of the country. So one, as I said, is the country's stage of development. The other is the political and economic system. For example, in developing countries, they exercise this protectionism. And usually advanced countries or advanced economic countries, they try to advocate a free trade. Okay? So developing countries, they usually exercise this protectionism laws. Protectionism means they try to protect their companies or their local companies from products coming from outside. Okay, so protectionism could be exercised, for example, by imposing high taxes on importers. Okay, and the other way to they protect their company is, for example, through quota. Okay? So protectionism is to protect your local businesses from being affected by the competition from other global businesses. Okay, so the way you do this is, for example, you impose high taxes on the import so that the import of these products to your country will be limited, and the people of your country consume products produced by these local companies. Okay, or you impose quota, which means you limit the number of importers of these products of global companies to your country. So your people will now have no other alternatives than consuming the local products. Okay, so these kinds of laws are called protectionism. Okay, protecting your local businesses. But most of the advanced countries, they promote free trade. Okay, so they say that if all the countries in the world exercise free trade, then prices will also be determined, and prices will also be fixed by this demand and supply of products internationally. And trade, or the market by itself, will regulate the demand, the supply, and the price. Okay, and they do not agree with this protectionism. Okay, so advanced countries, if you have heard of them, they always promote privatization, right, of other company. For privatization means changing this company, I mean government-owned businesses into private. Okay, so privatization is the way to a free trade economy. Okay, so first you privatize, then that is how you move to a free trade economy. And most of these advanced countries, they promote, and sometimes also they advise developing countries and also the least developed countries to privatize some of the companies, and they think that this privatization will help promote a free trade. Okay, so some believe that global market integration is eroding national economic sovereignty. For example, if you take the European Union, now in European Union, I think there are about 27 countries, right? And most of these countries, they use the same currency, right? The euro. And these countries, European Union countries that use euro as their own currency are called the Eurozone countries, okay? So now they gave up, every country in the Eurozone has gave up its rights to have its own national currency, right? And now all of them in this Eurozone have the same national currency, okay? And also, if you go to the European Union countries, let's say 27 of these countries, products have the same standard, okay? And mostly they have the same price. So you'd buy this, for example, a phone, okay? If you buy a phone with 100 euro in Germany, you'll buy the same phone with the same price in France, in other European Union countries. Okay, so products have the same standard in exchange for a better market access. Okay, so the ultimate resource of a government is power, as you know, and with independence and sovereignty of countries. And sometimes it makes it difficult for the governments to lead their countries. Okay, so I will give you one example. For example, the US promotes free trade. Okay, and in most of African countries, for example, they do not exercise free trade. Okay, because you know the local businesses are very weak, and they want to promote their local businesses, because that is how you grow. And also the government owns most of the companies or the corporations. Okay, so this is because the private companies are not that obliged to produce enough amount of products to the public. So what most of these governments do is they control most of the companies. They produce and they sell products at a lower price. Okay, so if you go to most of the African countries, for example, the transportation and the big companies, manufacturing companies, are owned by the government, and the government produces and sells this products to its people. Okay, but there is a continued interference from European countries and also from the US, imposing sometimes some kind of sanction or also some kind of indirect force on this government to privatize their businesses. Okay, so you might think, why do the US or other European countries care about the privatization or any market issues of other countries? Okay, so the reason is because for example, US has these big companies exporting products to different parts of the world. So if free trade is promoted, then these businesses will have many customers in other parts of the world that will help grow the economy of the US and also European countries. Okay, so anyways, my point here is the global marketing or international trade sometimes it threatens the sovereignty or the independence authority of countries. Okay, so let's talk about the political risk. Okay, so we just talked about the sovereignty and global market. So the second one is the political risk. So this political risk is the possible the risk of possible change in political environment or in government policy that would adversely affect a company's ability to operate effectively and profitably. I think you are all aware that when you say political risk, global marketers should study the political stability of a country before being engaged in marketing activities, right? Because if the country is not politically stable, then this will have a very negative, very bad effect on your business. Okay, so for example, if you take Middle East countries this day, for example, they are not politically stable, right? And if even for example, if there is a protest and the people protesting might destroy all your company properties. Okay, so what businesses usually do is they get into an insurance. Okay, there is an insurance called political risk insurance. So if the managers have studied the business in a country, for example, let's say in Afghanistan, let's say, and you know Afghanistan is not politically stable, right? So first of all, you don't want to do a business in Afghanistan because it's not politically stable and it's not good for the business to operate in a politically unstable country. But if you have to operate, then you have to get a political risk insurance. Okay, so this means in case there is a political problem and your business is destroyed or your business is in a big problem, then you might get the insurance from these companies. For example, there is a company that gives an insurance called overseas private investment corporation, or opic.gov. So this is, for example, a company, an insurance company that insures businesses who might be in a political risk. Okay, so when the perceived political risk is high, a country will have a difficult time attracting foreign direct investment, right? So as I've said, if it's politically not stable, then it's not safe to do business, right? So managers need to track political trends, such as the emergence of far-right parties in Germany, France, and Australia, okay? Austria. So, you know, far-right parties. So these parties are anti-immigration, anti-integration, and mostly protectionist ideologies. So as a manager, if you are a manager of a global business and you are thinking of opening your business or being involved in foreign direct investment, then you have to study the political trends and you have to see if this country is politically stable to do business, okay? And if you have any doubt of the political stability of the country, then you have to go for political risk insurance, so that if something bad happens, then your business is insured, okay? So it's up to us to study the political environment. So some examples of political risk might include war, it could be social unrest, fractionalized by language or ethnic and religious groups. For example, if you take mostly in Africa, these are the major issues of political instability: ethnic violence and also violence in religious groups. So if a country, let's say, for example, in Nigeria, a country in Africa, has more than 100 ethnic groups, and these ethnic groups might have conflicts among themselves. So maybe in choosing your location, you have to know how many ethnic groups are there and whether these ethnic groups are living in harmony or not, okay? If not, then you have to find ways to take care of these issues. And the other is orderly political transfer. So is there orderly political transfer, or just the government is taking coercive actions to stay or retain power, okay? If we go to Africa, for example, there are prime ministers or presidents who have been there in their political powers for 30 years, 40 years, okay, 20 years, okay? So they will do whatever it takes to retain the political power, okay? So you have to be also knowledgeable about that. And the other is politically motivated violence, mostly xenophobia. People who try to be violent on immigrants, or people who think they came from other countries and they are here to take away our jobs, something like that. And there could be international disputes, and also change in government, pro-business orientation, social conditions, population density, and wealth distribution. So, you know, wealth distribution is also becoming a big political risk. Corruption, nepotism, okay? Corruption, you know, being corrupted, taking or giving bribery, and bribes, and nepotism. This usually happens in most part of Asia and Africa. So this is nepotism, means when you hire your relatives into a business, okay? So for example, a manager of a company hires his cousins, his sisters, his mother, and everybody of his families, okay? Everyone in his family group to the business. Then this is not good for practicing business. And the other is a crime, okay? Labor costs, tax discrimination, okay? Exchange controls, tariff barriers, dependence and or importance to major hostile power, repatriation restrictions, okay? You have to know all these issues. So as especially as managers of global marketers, global marketing business, or multinational corporation, then we have to know each and every detail about this political risk so that we get prepared to deal with them. Okay. And the other thing is taxes. So government taxation policies are the other issues in the political environment. Okay, so government taxation policies, for example, high tax can lead to black market growth and cross border shopping. So sometimes government, because government relies on tax for delivering social services to its citizens, okay, and also to support the military, okay. And there is corporate taxation, and sometimes when corporate tax or business tax is very high, then people will or this business leader will try to for example, smuggle some products into the country illegally, or try to use cash or barter system, okay, not to register the business transactions, okay. So, for example, in Korea, if you go to any business, you pay using cards and using the point of sale system, right? So every business, the government can easily identify every business's tax, right? Because they know how many products are sold or how many services delivered, okay? Because every transaction is electronically recorded. But when tax is very high and businesses don't want to pay these taxes, they try to trade using cash, and that is not good to undertake a business. Okay. Okay. Let's take a break for 10 minutes, and I'll be back. Okay.